Contrary to popular belief, not everybody wants a car with all of the bells and whistles. There's a line of thinking where a simpler car will be more reliable because there are lesser things that can break down. Now for people like that, we have here Suzuki's most popular local MPV, the Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic. In this video, we find out what makes the Suzuki Ertiga a top choice amongst the local 7-seater MPVs. Let's do this. Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to another car review. If you're new to my channel, I want you to click that subscribe button for your regular dose of Philippine automotive content. If you're my subscriber already, well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But first, click that like button. Also special thanks to Suzuki Philippines for lending me the Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic to do this review. The Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic that we have here is currently the top-spec Ertiga variant in the local lineup ever since Suzuki Philippines phased out the Ertiga GLX to prevent any price overlap with the more muscular Suzuki XL7 SUV. Now this Ertiga GL Automatic is a basic, no-frills 7-seater people hauler that delivers in the areas that matter the most. Now the good thing here is Suzuki Philippines kept the price on the manageable side because this top-spec Ertiga GL Automatic has a retail price of 923,000 Philippine pesos. Now considering that most 7-seater MPVs from Japanese car makers are now breaching the million peso price level, well, the pricing of this top-spec Ertiga GL Automatic ain't so bad after all. Style-wise, the Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic sticks to a classic and proven approach. It has a small yet elegant-looking front grille here, unlike most of the other MPVs that slap on a big-ass front grille on its front fascia. However, this Ertiga GL Automatic only gets halogen lighting units here, but at least we get projector-style headlight housings for its headlights, and we also have a pair of halogen fog lights. Now, when you look at the overall design of this front fascia, well, it's a classic MPV design and it's guaranteed to age well through the years. Here on the side, the Suzuki Ertiga gets some functional features that should help make the ride even more convenient. Now, the first thing that I notice here, guys, are the size of these rear doors. I mean, these rear doors are huge and they open nearly 90 degrees, so that should make it easier for you to get in and out of the Ertiga. Now another thing I noticed is the step-in into the cabin is pretty low, as you can see, and that should make it easier for the elderly or smaller kids to get in and out of this vehicle. Now, despite that low step-in though, this Ertiga still has a healthy ground clearance which stands at 180 millimeters. Now, another thing that I noticed with this vehicle is that the windows of this thing are huge, so that should make for a more pleasant riding experience inside the Ertiga. Now, when you turn your attention to the wheels of this thing, well, the Ertiga rides on 15-inch alloy wheels that are wrapped in 185/65 R15 tires. Now those wheels might be on the smaller side, but that 65 series thickness of the tire sidewall will make for a more comfortable riding experience. Now behind these wheels, well, the Ertiga just gets some basic mechanical bits. We get ventilated disc brakes up front, we only have drum brakes at the back, and for the suspension, we have a MacPherson setup in the front and a torsion beam at the back. Here at the rear end, the Ertiga gets an LED taillight design that is pretty similar to the one found in the Suzuki XL7. In fact, save for the body-colored center area here and a differently designed rear bumper, well, this rear end can pass off as the rear end of the Suzuki XL7. Now, when you pop open the manual liftgate of this Suzuki Ertiga, well, as you can see, even with the third row in use, we still get around 153 liters of cargo space here, which is good enough for a medium-sized luggage and some smaller items beside it. Now, I also like the fact that we also have some not-so-secret compartments found here underneath the floorboard, which helps to further expand your cargo carrying capabilities. Now, if you're looking for the spare tire of the Suzuki Ertiga, well, it can be found underneath the car, yeah, which helps to maximize its cargo carrying capabilities, as I said. Now, in case 153 liters is not enough for you, well, you can always tumble down the third row seats. They quickly fold flat to the floor, as you can see, and that will now give you a total of 550 liters of trunk space. Now, that is pretty good, guys, and it can easily carry around 4 medium-sized luggage. Now, if you go to a trip to IKEA and you need to transport like knockdown furniture, well, you can also tumble down the second row seats of the Suzuki Ertiga, and that will give you over 800 liters of cargo space. The Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic is motivated by a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated gasoline motor that puts out 103 horsepower and 138 Newton-meters of torque. Now, the power is sent to the front wheels via a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I did notice that Suzuki is fond of their 4-speed automatics, which, if you think about it, guys, is actually the most reliable transmission type next to an actual manual transmission. Now, another thing that I noticed with the Ertiga is that it has a stellar level of fuel economy. You see, on a city drive, I was able to get 11.8 kilometers per liter in the city. And on a highway run coming to this location with my family in tow, so I have a full load, well, I was able to get 17.5 kilometers per liter. Now, that's not bad, guys, especially for a 7-seater MPV that's running on a full load. If you're a Tito of Manila, just like me, guys, well, stepping into the cockpit of the Suzuki Ertiga will feel like Throwback Thursday for you. You see, the cabin layout and the materials that they use here are pretty similar to the ones found in vehicles manufactured in the 1990s. Now, case in point, guys, the key. This is the top-spec Suzuki Ertiga, and we still get a standard key here instead of an engine push start button. Now, if you look at the seats of this thing, well, the Ertiga has fabric seats. Now, granted, they are on the comfortable side, but the driver's seat has some pretty aggressive lumbar support, which will be fantastic news for people who have lower back problems. Yeah, which, if you think about it, most Titos of Manila probably have lower back problems already. However, guys, for people like me, for guys who are me, who are relatively healthy, well, the more aggressive lumbar support here does nothing for me except to make my belly stick out a little bit more. Right there. Now, the steering wheel of this Ertiga GL Automatic is also just made of urethane, although we do get a flat bottom here, but I am quite bummed out by the fact that we don't get any hands-free buttons here. Now, the only button found on the steering wheel is the horn button. So, yeah, it's kind of weird that this is the top-spec Ertiga in the local market, but we don't get hands-free buttons even for audio volume. So, yeah, if you're going to adjust the volume of your infotainment system, you have to reach out on the screen and do it on the knob right there. Now, the good thing, though, is the wheel adjusts for tilt. So, that's pretty good. But it doesn't really telescope, so that's also a bit of a bummer. Now, when it comes to the safety bits of this Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic, well, as you can see on your screen, it's equipped with a decent set of safety features, although it is leaning more towards the more minimal side. However, despite that, guys, well, the Suzuki Ertiga still managed to score 4 stars in the ASEAN NCAP safety rating. Now, when you turn your attention to the infotainment system of this thing, well, thankfully, despite the Throwback Thursday vibe of the entire cabin, the infotainment system is on the more modern side. we get here an 8-inch touchscreen that comes with Bluetooth connectivity, and it also comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, despite being a top-spec variant, this Ertiga GL Automatic does not get a reverse camera. Now, the only thing that we get here are rear parking sensors. So if you're backing up this thing, make sure that you make use of your rear view mirror because you don't get a reverse camera there. Now, that's a quick and cheap aftermarket fix, guys. But yes, considering that this is the top-spec Suzuki Ertiga in the Philippines, I would have expected to see that come straight from the factory. Now, when you move down from there and into your air conditioning controls, if you notice, I didn't even call it climate control controls, but air conditioning controls. Because, guys, the layout, the format, and the materials they use here is exactly the same as vehicles found in the 1990s. I mean, the aircon controls found in vehicles from the 1990s. These are manual climate controls knobs here, and yes, they do remind me of our Toyota Light Ace back then, or even my first car, which is my 1994 Honda Civic EG. So yeah, it's simple, it's basic, but as I said, guys, simple and basic equals more reliable. Ah? Okay, so now we go down further. We have here a couple of cup holders, well, kind of squarish, which is pretty typical for a Suzuki. And I will subject it to my 600 millimeter clean canteen test. So let's see. Alright, so it doesn't completely fit my clean canteen, but it can support it, so I will give it a marginal pass. If you're not really too comfortable with that, well, you'll be happy to know that the bottle holders on the door cards are large enough to house my clean canteen. Now, when you move down to the gear shifter of this thing, well, you'll see that this is also a gear shifter that is more at home in vehicles from the 1990s or even the 1980s. You see, we don't get any manual mode here. Instead, we just get an option for low gear, second gear, and D for drive, right? So, yeah, this is a pretty much traditional 4-speed automatic gear shifter right there. We also have a manual handbrake, and if you'll notice, we don't get a center armrest. So I'm also bummed out by the fact that we don't get a center armrest here. This is the top-spec Ertiga GL Automatic. So I kind of expected to get a center armrest, but unfortunately we don't also have that. Now when you look at the layout and the cabin materials that they used here, as I said, guys, throwback Thursday galore, especially if you are a Tito of Manila. Now, Suzuki just tried to put in some different textures here and there, but essentially the entire cabin is just hard plastic. The dashboard, the door cards, heck, even the elbow rest on the door cards are also hard plastic. I mean, guys, it's a straightforward, basic, functional cabin that will give any Toyota a good run for their money. The second row seats are easily accessible, as I said a while back. It's easy to climb into this thing. It's quite low. And once you're inside, guys, you'll see that you have the same amount of space that you'd expect from a 7-seater MPV in the category. Now, guys, I'm 5'6", and this is my driving position here, and I get a good and whopping 6 to 7 inches of knee room and a good, well, the same amount, 6 to 7 inches of headroom. Now, you can fit 3 average Asians here without any problems, guys. And the good thing there is the second row seats also slide forward in case you need to give more space or legroom space for the people in the third row. Now, as for the amenities here in the second row, guys, well, we do get a row of AC vents here mounted on the ceiling, blasting cold air to your face. And we also have a 12-volt charging outlet there and a tiny little center armrest right here. One of the advantages of the Suzuki Ertiga is the ample space that you get here in the third row seat. Now, the second row isn't even in a position where it's been pushed forward. In fact, it's in the maximum backwards position. And at 5'6", guys, I still get around an inch of knee room here and a good like 4 inches of headroom. Now, this is a very comfortable area in the Suzuki Ertiga because, as you can notice, my sitting position is practically a normal sitting position here. So even if I stay here in the third row seat of the Suzuki Ertiga and go out on a long drive, it's going to be comfortable. It's not going to feel like I'm being cramped and I'm being tortured here at the back. No siree. Now, to add to that, Suzuki also equipped the Ertiga with a pair of cup holders here at the back, and we also have that large windows here to give me a feeling of more space even here in the third row. Now, since we also have that row of AC vents mounted on the ceiling, well, I am going to be quite cool and comfortable even if I'm here on the third row seats of the Suzuki Ertiga. Alright guys, so we are now driving the Suzuki Ertiga, and as you can see, I am driving with my family. We are going out on a long drive today to test out the life purpose of this Suzuki Ertiga, which is primarily to be a family vehicle. Now here's the thing guys, in terms of visibility, well, the Ertiga can give you a stellar level of visibility because it's not really too high, and we've got a wide open windshield in front of us and also large side windows. But I did find that the A-pillars are a little bit on the chunky side. So yeah, you gotta be careful with that. And also the hood couldn't really be seen. I couldn't really see the hood. So yeah, you also have to be careful. And yeah, don't tailgate the car in front of you. Now as you go out on your drive with your family, so you're gonna open all of the doors of the Suzuki Ertiga GL. Well, it's best for you to remember to always lock your doors as you go out on your drive. You see, the Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic does not come with speed sensing door locks, and you have to manually lock all of the doors from the inside just to keep your family safe. As for the steering feel of this Suzuki Ertiga GL, well, I love the steering feel and the response of this MPV. You see, it has a good level of heft to it. It's not really that heavy, but it's also not light. So yeah, it's the perfect balance of steering tuning here, and the response is pretty much spot on for an MPV. It's something that I didn't really expect to get from a budget 7-seater MPV. Yeah, but Suzuki really knows how to tune its steering. As you can see, we're changing lanes here, and yes, the steering is pretty responsive. Since the Suzuki Ertiga is primarily a family vehicle, well, the family's comfort is, of course, the top priority. So right now, we're on the highway. We're traveling at around 80 kilometers per hour, and I'm happy to report to you guys that there's not too much highway noise inside the cabin of this Suzuki Ertiga. I mean, it is pretty quiet. And as we went through some rumble strips there, guys, well, we did feel a little bit of vibration there. Granted, well, this is still, a value 7-seater MPV. So, yeah, but overall on the highway, the cabin is pretty quiet, and the air conditioning is quite cold. Guys, how are you back there? Is the aircon cold? Good? All right. You see, my little boy is at the third row seat, and yeah, the air conditioning is reaching him all the way back there, so it's also pretty cool. Now, when it comes to the harshness inside, well, it's not harsh, so it's quite comfortable. That's one of the good things that I love about this Suzuki Ertiga. Now, here's one of the things that I noticed as I'm driving this Suzuki Ertiga. You see the ergonomics of this thing. Well, it leaves a little bit more to be desired. Well, I do get a good and aggressive amount of lumbar support on the driver's seat. Too aggressive, in fact, that my back is quite arched. So, yeah, you're gonna have a really correct posture here while you're driving the Suzuki Ertiga. Now, aside from that, another thing that I'm kind of missing here are the hands-free buttons on the steering wheel. So as I mentioned a while back, we don't get hands-free buttons here. So if you need to adjust your audio system, like the volume controls and stuff like that, you'll have to reach out for the actual knob found here on the infotainment system. It's a minor quirk. In fact, it's almost like nitpicking. But since I gotten used to just pressing on the buttons on the steering wheel, yeah, it's kind of weird that we only get a horn button here. So other than that, other than the slightly aggressive lumbar support and the fact that we don't have hands-free buttons here, well, the drive itself, the ergonomics itself, it's pretty good. I mean, it's the same ones that I found in most other MPVs that I've tested out. It's a little bit more upright. It's a little bit more truck-like, in fact. But it's quite easy to drive. It's quite comfortable. Except for that, yeah, aggressive lumbar support. Alright guys, so yeah, despite being a family vehicle, well, I need to test out the performance aspect of this Suzuki Ertiga. So let's try an acceleration run. Alright, so the good thing here is, I love how Suzuki tuned the transmission. You see, despite having a low horsepower output, like a little bit over 100 horsepower, well, the transmission is eager to downshift when I'm stepping on the gas. So I love that about this Suzuki Ertiga. But here's the thing, it will give you that initial like performance downshift, and then it loses its breath, right? Now, it doesn't mean that it's gonna have a difficult time going up to triple-digit speeds, because even with a full load, right now we have a full load right here, well, I am still able to take this up to triple-digit speeds without any problems. See? It just takes a little bit more time, yeah, to deliver the goods, but it will deliver it. And I love that the engine doesn't sound too strained when it's, you know, when it's giving you the juice. Now, the good thing here, guys, is I also got to test this on a city run, on city driving, and the low-end grunt is there. And that's something that you need for a family hauler, for a people hauler. You need to have a good amount of stop and go, you know, punch, which this Suzuki Ertiga has. So it really boils down to how well Suzuki was able to tune the transmission of this thing. Now, granted, we just have a 4-speed automatic here, guys, but that 4-speed automatic, yeah, it is decently tuned, and I love that about the Suzuki Ertiga. Now, as for the suspension and handling of this thing, well, the Ertiga is a family MPV, so of course, it will handle like a 7-seater MPV. So it's best for you to take it easy and take corners slower than you'd normally do when you're driving, let's say, a sedan or, you know, a performance SUV. And yeah, it has a tendency to lean into the corners a little bit more than usual, but it's not like it's a sloppy lean. You know, it's a lean, but it's a controlled lean. So yes, Suzuki still managed to tune the suspension pretty well in that regard. Now, the drawback there, though, is that when you're driving this solo, like I did the other day, well, yeah, the suspension tends to get a little bit bouncier than normal. Well, it's probably something that you'd expect from an MPV. But when you load it up, like what we have now, we have a full load of passengers here inside, yeah, the suspension settles down quite a bit, and it becomes a more comfortable and pliant ride. Overall, guys, now I can truly see why the Suzuki Ertiga has a lot of fans here in the Philippines. I mean, it's a straightforward, easy to drive 7-seater MPV, plus it returns stellar fuel economy regardless of the traffic conditions. So yes, when it comes to the overall life purpose of this vehicle, well, the Suzuki Ertiga really delivers, guys. It truly delivers. The Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic may not be the most advanced nor the flashiest 7-seater MPV in the category, but it continues to deliver one of the most reliable drives in the segment. Its driving character is simple and easy to get used to, plus its fuel consumption is one of the best in the category. Now, at the end of the day, guys, if a car is easy to drive, is reliable, and has a great fuel economy, well, these are some of the areas that matter the most when it comes to the 7-seater MPV category. And in that regard, guys, the Suzuki Ertiga GL Automatic continues to deliver. Thanks for watching.